Nick, very good to see you. An important discussion today. 4 ways to address long term care and medical expenses in retirement. According to Fidelity, the average 65-year-old couple will need nearly $315,000 for healthcare in retirement. That's not even including the cost of long term care. As you know, long term care, 7 out of 10 people will need at some point, and Medicare generally doesn't even pick that up. So let's talk through our options. First is traditional long term care insurance. What are the pros and cons?
Well, and actually, you said 315. I just read another article that said they just updated that to
I'm
$330,000,
not surprised. Yeah.
right? I mean, it's like, whoa, it was 315 that an average couple 65 over their lifetime will spend, and that's not even long-term care, and now it's 330,000. So we're
Right.
we're talking a significant amount of money. And so when it comes to long-term care, a lot of people think, well, Medicare is going to cover it, but Medicare doesn't cover that. Medicare covers maybe like the first 100 days of stuff, but it doesn't cover long-term care. And so one option that people will do is they'll say, well, what about traditional long-term care? And how I look at traditional long-term care is think about car insurance. You pay for it, but the only time you ever use it is if you get in a wreck. So it's like a black hole. You put that money in, and the only time you use it is if you get in a wreck. That's how traditional long-term care works. You either use it or you lose it. You're not building up value with it. You're putting that money in, and then you either use it for long-term care, or if not, all those premiums you paid over those years goes away. Another thing too is those premiums can rise. So, and they do, and they can go up significantly. I've seen some companies that from one year to the next might raise their premiums 10, 15, 20%. And then another thing too is it's great when you're younger, if you're 45, 50, 55, 60, trying to get coverage for traditional long-term care and getting covered for it. But usually a lot of people, Aaron, they wait until they're 65, 70, 75 to get long-term care. And by then it's tough to qualify
Right.
because
Right.
of health reasons, and there's underwriting and all sorts of stuff.
Right. Yeah. As I've heard before, the time to buy it is before you need it. Right. Well said. All right. Another option would be linked benefits. How does this work?
So link benefits could be a whole bunch of different things. One thing that I call that is linked benefits are kind of like hybrid plans.
Yeah.
They're plans that do something else, but then also have long-term care benefits, where you have something like maybe legacy plan with long-term care bolted on, or you have an income plan with a long-term care plan bolted on. Think of it about it like Iron Man's suit. Okay, it's basically got its normal powers, but then you can supercharge it. And now it's got turbo power, right?
Mm.
That's how you kind of have to look at it. One of these types of plans is something called a private pension powered long-term care plan. It's a plan that creates a guaranteed income for life, backed up by the claims paying ability of usually an insurance company. That's where you get long-term care plans from, or from insurance companies. So these insurance companies are guaranteeing some sort of income for life. So let's just hypothetically say that you had a plan that's paying you $25,000 a year of income. And then during a time that you have this plan, you can't complete 2 of your 6 activities of daily living: eating, dressing, bathing, something like that. They might take that $25,000 and double that income to $50,000
Mm.
for up to a 5-year period. So it's like Iron Man's suit. It starts out with one thing, and then it can supercharge to something else. So it's almost like that turbocharge. When life gets harder, it gives you something else. So that's
Mm.
one way. That's one type. Another type is what we call hybrid life insurance. So this is like a special type of life insurance. And when you say life insurance, everybody's like, dude, I gotta like die to benefit from that. So no, off the table. Don't want to talk about it. That's not how this works. This is a special type of life insurance where you put money in, and yes, it has a life insurance death benefit to it, but you can actually touch that death benefit if you need it for long-term care. And I like this option better because unlike the black hole where you put money in and you may never get anything out, if you put money in this plan, somebody is getting something, because there's 2 certainties in life: death and taxes. So we're going to die, and somebody's going to get a death benefit. But if I need to get to that money early for my own long-term care benefits, I can go into that plan and I can take early withdrawals, early benefits from it. So it's almost like a dual purpose type deal. And how that would look in reality, again, just this is a big level picture, is maybe you have like a $500,000 death benefit, but a company might say, but if you needed to get to some of that money, we'll give you maybe $80,000 a year that you could take out of it over a 5-year period towards long-term care. So you're touching some of that some of that death benefit for your own long-term care benefits. So that's a couple different options. A third option, they just throw this out there, is another one called repositioning. A lot of people have maybe $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 sitting in the bank. It's idle money, not doing anything. And so if you go to the bank and you needed it for long-term care and you had $200,000 in the bank, you still have $200,000. That's not going to miraculously become more for long-term care. But what this repositioning strategy is where you take that $200,000 and you put it into a plan that still has, you still have access if you need to pull that $200,000 back out for some sort of emergency. But while it's in that plan, it gets enhanced again, like Iron Man's suit, to where maybe that $200,000 can get you $300,000 or $350,000 or $400,000 of long-term care benefits. So you're leveraging that same money, and instead of making it idle money in the bank that does no service, you're making it worth more for something of a long-term care nature.
Mm-hmm. And your third option would be to self-insure, but this is difficult, risky, and incredibly expensive. Nick, we've talked about the cost of long-term care before. So this is monthly median costs in the Orlando area. I pulled it out, to 20 years from now. But you can see homemaker services anywhere up to a private room at a nursing home going to be costing you like max $20,000 a month.
Yeah, I mean, self-insuring means you pay 100% out of pocket.
Yeah.
When you're younger and you're not needing long-term care, it sounds empowering. But like you can see from there, it can be financially brutal. Mm-hmm. Just even right now, if we're looking at a nursing home cost, you're talking right now, not in the future. Right now, it's $118,000 a year. And the average time that you stay is about 3 years. So that's $355,000 for one person. But let's say you're married, times 2, that's $711,000 in today's dollars. So if you can self-insure and you have that amount of money, then that's great. Then do that. And then some people will say, well, I'll just stay at home and I'll have somebody come to my home because that's going to be a lot cheaper. It is a little cheaper, but not so much. I mean, that's still $73,000 in today's dollars, yeah. $73,000 a year. I mean, if that happens for 3 years, that's $219,000. So what I suggest is at least have the conversation. Don't just say, I'll worry about it at some point in the future and I'll kick that can until then. Look at it like right now. Lockbox maybe some money and say, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a lockbox of money for long-term care. I'm going to put some of this money over here that's earmarked for long-term care in the future. So if I need it, I can go to this bucket of money and use it. Now, try and cover as much as you can of that for these long-term care costs. Be aware of what these costs are. Just don't kick the can down the road. And especially don't just say, the kids will take care of me. I'll just worry about it then.
Right. Well, and that brings us to option number 4, Nick, which is simply becoming a dependent. This is the reality of what happens if you don't have a plan.
I've seen this happen a lot this year. It's the choice when you haven't really done, you've decided to defer the process.
Right.
And how this looks in reality is when one spouse goes into a facility and the other spouse has to burn through retirement savings to take care of them. Or you go into a facility and you burn through all of your money and now your children have to pay the coverage because your children feel like, gosh, I got to work. I don't want to leave mom at home by herself. So I got to put her in this facility and I'm going to have to fork over, $4,000 or $5,000 or $6,000 a month. I have a lady right now, this is exactly happening to her. Her and her brother work. And so their mom has spent through all of her money. And so The now what's happening is the daughter is having to go through her money and talk to her brother and another sibling and say, okay, we got to split these costs. And you can imagine that's a tough conversation to have. The emotional toll, that caregiving stress, the family conflict that causes is a big one. And so you just got to make sure that you're planning. This is the reverse. You remember that movie Taken by Liam Neeson?
With one of my most favorite lines in it ever, but yes.
What's the favorite line?
I have a very specific skill set cultivated over a very long career. That's how I feel about me.
I have a very specific skill set.
Set of skills. Yeah.
Specific skills. I'm basically going to kill you with my specific set of skills. But but basically, he has a family member that his wife gets kidnapped, or maybe it's his daughter.
I think it's his daughter. But
it's his daughter in that one, and later on it's his wife in maybe the second movie. But his daughter gets kidnapped, and he just says, "You don't mess with my family. I take care of my family." And so the same thing is, if he does that, if you're not handling this, it's like you're doing the reverse of Taken. Mm-hmm. It's like you're saying, "I'm not going to handle this, and then I'll just worry about it later." And I'm just seeing way too many people that have not thought about this. And now is a good time. Take this as an opportunity just to have the conversation, to figure out which of these options are we going to do, what conversations are we going to have. This goes hand in hand with that estate planning conversation. I find, Aaron, that these are the two hardest conversations people have, is the long-term care and the estate planning conversation, because it brings our health and our mortality into the picture.
Right. And just to say this in other words, you can have this conversation now, even though it's uncomfortable, or you can have this conversation when you and your family are in crisis, and think about how emotionally charged and difficult it will be then.
It's not about fear. It's about freedom.
Right.
Right. You think about the military, how many times we see a catastrophe happen on TV, some sort of natural disaster, and it gets handled poorly. And then we'll say, man, how did they not have contingency plans for what had happened? How dare they? But yet in our own houses, we let that happen. There's things that we know could happen. There's a 70% chance that we're going to need long-term care. And we don't plan for it. And so that's something that needs to be done so we can preserve our independence, so we can protect our family, and that we can build a smart plan before the storm hits.
Mm-hmm. Right. So, Nick, clearly having this conversation sooner rather than later is really important. Also, working with you or somebody else who specializes in this can help kind of lower the emotions if you want to have this discussion with your family, with your either parents or your children. So if somebody wants to get a hold of you, Nick, how can they reach you?
Our phone number here at the office is 844-GROUP-10. 844-GROUP-10. They can talk with Kim or Maria here at the office, and they can schedule a 15-minute strategy session call with somebody from our team. They can also go to our website, group10financial.com. There's lots of resources there as well. And when you go to our website, there's links to our YouTube channel with more links, more content. Yeah. There's links to our Facebook page, which has more content. And there's also a toolkit that people can get as well. And how you can get that is you can write this number down. It's 800-691-3372. 800-691-3372. We usually do this just for our radio show, but it's 800-691-3372, and you can type that in your phone and then text the word toolkit, TOOLKIT, to that same number. And when you text toolkit to 800-691-3372, we have an entire toolkit that we'll send you called the On the Money Retirement Toolkit that goes into a lot of what we're talking about here today.
Great. All right, Nick, thank you so much for your time today.
Great being with you.